After missing out on re-signing Kenley Jansen, the Angels add two veteran arms to the bullpen, Drew Pomeranz and Jordan Romano. The Halos are betting on two arms being better than one at half the price.
You are Locked On Angels, your daily Los Angeles Angels podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day, and the number one sports podcast network in all the land. Today's show is sponsored by FanDuel. If you want to be right in the middle of all of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long.
What's going on, you sickos? Thanks for being here for this episode of Locked On Angels, this live edition of Locked On Angels, where it's your team every day. You've got the Frisch brothers here with you, a.k.a. the Super Halo Bros. My name is Jon, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother Jon.
Hey, we're here 3 times a week talking Angels baseball with you, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, until pitchers and catchers report. And we're talking about your favorite team. It's our hope and desire that you leave a smarter fan, and specifically a more informed and smarter Angel fan. So let's start our discussion with the big news from Tuesday night. Thank you for everybody who's here live. We're excited to be live with you. Mike, the Angels sign Drew Pomeranz and Jordan Romano.
Yeah, Drew Pomeranz is a left-handed pitcher, bullpen guy, will earn $4 million on a one-year deal, and Jordan Romano, a righty, will earn $2 million on a one-year deal. Let's start with Drew.
Yeah. Pennies on the dollar.
Give me that money. I'd take it. Drew Pomeranz, he pitched for the Cubs in 2025. Jon, what an interesting year for him based off of where he was. Now, here's what he did last year. A 2.17 ERA with 57 strikeouts and just 15 walks across almost 50 innings, which is fantastic. He's a great lefty replacement for what the Angels lost in Andrew Chafin. Now, 2021 was his last year in the majors before last year, before 2025. He dealt with numerous injuries during that period of time. And here's what's really fascinating. He was with the Angels on a minor league deal in 2024, and then he got let go at the end of spring training. He's just a two-pitch pitcher, 4-seamer, and a knuckle curve. Both pitches grade above average according to Stuff Plus. His fastball had a plus 10 run value. So that's essentially what was the outcome of throwing that pitch in a specific situation. So Pomeranz's fastball prevented 10 more runs than the average fastball in Major League Baseball. It's why he was pretty good last year.
Yeah, one of the benefits of getting to be a host of Locked On MLB Game Night this past season, and if you didn't tune in to Game Night, what are you doing? Listen, we go live after the last game, after the last out, every single night. And JD Haffern of Locked On Cardinals and I, we took Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday duties. And one of the things I learned, well, I'll say this, being a host, I learned a ton of stuff about other teams across the league, specifically from our Locked On hosts. And I know that when the Cubs bullpen was struggling, Pomeranz was a guy they really had to turn to. I heard from Sam Ober of Locked On Cubs basically say, just give the ball to Pomeranz. Stop messing around. Give it to him, right? When the relievers they were counting on, they couldn't meet the moment, they'd call on Pomeranz to help, and he'd step up. Now, on the other hand, Mike, I heard Connor Thomas of Locked On Phillies complain a lot about Jordan Romano. Let's talk about him real fast.
Yeah, Jordan Romano had 2 very bad seasons in a row. So 2025, he had an ERA of 8.23 with 47 Ks, 17 walks, and 10 home runs given up across 42 and 2/3 innings pitched. Now, prior to that, he was with the Blue Jays, and he struggled with an ERA of a 6.59 in 13 and 2/3 innings pitched. Yuck. Missed most of the season with elbow inflammation. Now, the Phillies ended up trading for Johan Duran at the trade deadline to be their new closer. Now, you did some searching of Connor's tweets from last season. Can you share those? Because you can just see the heartbreak and the disappointment, things that we do not need in Anaheim. Why don't you share that with us?
Yeah, April 4th. This is from Connor of Locked On Phillies. Jordan Romano is not making many fans in his early days in Philadelphia. April 6th. Jordan Romano has flat out stunk so far for the Phils. A big early bullpen problem. April 23rd. I want Jordan Romano off my dang baseball team this second. I don't ever want to see him touch a mound in a Phillies jersey again. April 27th, Jordan Romano time. Totally stress-free and comfortable. No worries at all. Definitely not worried. Mike,
sarcasm.
let's jump to August, and I'm going to come back to that point because we just went from April to August.
Okay.
If the Phillies trot Jordan Romano back to the mound again at any point this season, it's malpractice. There is no other acceptable option than a DFA at this point. Then he tweeted, Jordan Romano, the Phils are waving the white flag. And then finally, embarrassing night, embarrassing to throw Romano in a 3-run game. Terrible. Now, those are Connor's thoughts from when Jordan Romano was really bad. But Mike, his season was kind of weird, wasn't it?
Yeah, he had a terrible debut in March and in April for the Phillies. Then he pitched 9 scoreless outings in a row from April 27th to May 22nd with 4 saves and 2 holds over that time. Gave up 3 runs to the A's on the 23rd, but the Phillies still won that game 4-3. 2 more saves in May, 2 straight losses in June, and ended the month with a 4-run outing. Had a decent stretch in July and August with a blow-up mixed in. Then his season ended on August 26th with a right middle finger inflammation. That's kind of an interesting injury, right?
Yeah.
There's got to be a joke in there somewhere, right?
Yeah.
The right Phillies, middle finger.
Phillies fans wanting to give Jordan Romano the middle finger. That's what I think.
Yeah, for sure. Now, his season, it seemed pretty bad. The numbers look terrible. But if you look at the individual results, it almost felt like it was good stretch, then blow up, good stretch, then blow up, which I don't know how I feel about that. We're going to talk about these decisions in just a moment, but let's talk about Romano as a reliever, Johnny.
Yeah. First of all, I just want to say too, like when it comes to a reliever's ERA, it's going to be inflated.
Sure.
Especially because they're not pitching as many innings as a starter, but the blowups were like 3 or 4 runs at a time.
Yeah.
For Romano. And then he'd have like a 6-game stretch, scoreless. And some of them were like low pressure situations. Some of them were the 6th inning, the 7th, the 8th, the 9th. So he's been toward the back of the bullpen. I mean, toward the back of the game, essentially in all different roles. So I don't know necessarily that he's going to be the closer. By the way, as we continue our conversation on Locked On Angels, we'll get into what the bullpen looks like. We'll talk about what are the Angels going to do about the closer, that sort of thing. But let me talk about him as a reliever. He's got a 4-seam fastball and a slider combo. Oddly enough, the expected batting average on both his pitches were better than the actual results. So that means that there's room for improvement. The results didn't reflect how he was throwing. It was essentially regression towards getting better is how they would say that. Both pitches, they grade slightly above average according to Stuff Plus, but they did grade higher in previous years, Mike. Specifically 2019 to 2023, he had a 2.67 ERA with 272 Ks across 216 innings from 2019 to 2023 with the Blue Jays. Also, he was an all-star in 22 and 23. So dealt with injuries in 24 with the Blue Jays, got signed with the Phillies in 25, didn't have a great debut, hit and miss. Again, the blow-ups were really bad. But we've seen that with the likes of Carlos Estevez. Even Kenley Jansen had a blow up and a blown save here and there. Jordan Romano is 50-50. I think you're going to get what Connor described as the Jordan Romano experience, where you hold your breath and cross your fingers and your toes and your eyes, right?
Yeah.
And so we'll see what happens there. Give me initial thoughts before we dive deeper into the conversations on today's show. Initial thoughts on these 2 moves. What do you say?
John, it feels like the league is playing poker and the Angels are playing Go Fish right now as they're trying to sign players, because we're not dealing with like an actual deck. We're dealing with a deck that was for another game, meaning that it just feels like we're getting guys that we're crossing our fingers hoping that they hit. And now there's 3 guys on this pitching staff, Alek Manoah, Grayson Rodriguez, and now Jordan Romano, that we're just hoping that they hit. And that's not a bad thing when you have a team that you can count on. But the problem for us as everydayers is we're wondering, who can we count on? Who is it that we're going to be able to say, oh, he's coming in and he's going to lock this down? It's going to feel similar to what Connor's tweets were like this year. Now, obviously, we hope that they're great, But with those three guys, there's just a lot of wishing and hoping and wanting this to come to fruition and be great. There's a lot of potential, but there isn't like a history of performance because of injuries or because they were out of the league. I like the Drew Pomeranz signing. I like him as a lefty in the bullpen. He does have a history of being good. Obviously, he was out of the league and not pitching due to injury for about 4 years. And then last year, he came on as a minor league signing with the Cubs, and then they ended up bringing him up to the major league level, and he was really great for them. But with bullpen arms, they're always so volatile. Right. And so you just don't know what you're going to get. I mean, we can go back and talk about the guys that we had just a few years ago, and like Aaron Loop, for example. Like, that guy was coming off a great year, and then he just fell apart with the Angels. The benefit, though, John, is that they're not giving up a lot of money. But I'm tired of talking about money. I'm tired of talking about like, oh, they're getting them for really cheap. I get that that's part of the game, but I want to see performance. It's similar to what I've talked about on this show in previous seasons with like a Griffin Canning. Like, well, he's going to eat some innings for us, but he's not going to do it effectively, but he'll at least eat some innings for us. Now, I want somebody to eat some innings and at least keep you in the game. Same thing from the bullpen perspective. I get that you got these guys for cheap. So if Jordan Romano doesn't work out, you're not losing a ton of money. Like, there's not a lot of cash on the line here. However, I would rather have somebody that I can count on that guy. It's why I loved the Kenley Jansen signing last year. I can count on that guy to go out there and get me these outs and know that he's not going to freak out, know that he's not going to get nervous, know that he's going to be able to stay focused. And that's what's really frustrating about some of these signings for me, and I think for a lot of our everydayers. But what are your thoughts?
Oh, well, I got an interesting comment here from Vicky. They signed these guys on Rusev Day. Vicky always likes to remind us that it's Rusev Day every day.
Love it.
She said, I still believe Mike Maddux has influence over what pitchers we sign this offseason. I think that there's some credence to that. At the same time, where'd that comment go? But it was essentially, we put a lot of stock into, well, Mike Maddux is going to fix that guy, and he's going to fix that guy. And at first it was like, hey, you know what? Mike Maddux can work with Grayson Rodriguez and help him. And then it was like, oh, and then Alek Manoah. Oh, and then Jordan Romano. So it just, he's going to be a busy guy this season, right?
I made a note to myself to say, don't say Mike Maddux is going to fix this guy. I made a note to myself because we've said that on and on and on and on, and which is true. It's true. And I get that that's part of the narrative. That's why you bring in a Mike Maddux. I totally understand that. However, like, there's just one Mike Maddux, and he's got a lot of guys to work with. He's got a lot of guys to try to figure out. Now, could he do it? Maybe he can. Maybe he's a magician. Maybe he's magical, and maybe he'll make it work. But this is a lot to put on a guy that you've brought on, and you're like, hey, bro, can you make us really, really good? Can I give you some bread and butter, and can you make French toast, right? Yeah. Like, can you make this into a beautiful breakfast for us? That's what it feels like right now, what Perry Minasian is handing Mike Maddux.
You always got the great examples there. I love that. Thank you. Great metaphors. Now, here's the thing. $2 million for Romano. You can hit the eject button on that. No harm, no foul, right? It doesn't work out. Just say bye-bye. Pomeranz I really like, Mike. It feels like a Hunter Strickland kind of move, right? Yep. Where he had a great season. Pomeranz did with the Cubs and kind of came out of nowhere again. And I like that Pomeranz had a successful season. I like that he's a lefty to go with Brock Burke. I think that's really necessary. At this point, I think that, I don't know, since they didn't get their closer in Kenley Jansen, and you add these two arms that are veterans. We always talk about veteran arms needing to lead these young guys, but also be the cooler heads when things get tough. Mike, it's the bullpen. I feel like the Angels, the least of their worries is the bullpen right now. And before this move, it was a worry. Now, am I as worried about it as I was before? Not anymore, because they still need a starting pitcher. They still need center field. They still need maybe second base. They definitely need third base, right? And so I think to build a bullpen on the cheap, like you said, bullpen pitchers are volatile. Yeah, it's what have you done for me lately? So go with guys who have had a track record or just had a great year. You know what I'm saying?
So what makes this a good move is if the Angels make some good moves, like get a third baseman and a left-handed hitter, right? And so that's, I think, the part that's really frustrating for me and for everydayers is we go, but we're just not confident they're going to do that. Yeah. We're not confident that they're going to make those. We're not confident that they're going to get somebody who's quality to actually be there at third base or to be in center field or to be a left-handed bat. We're not sure that they're going to bring somebody in because they could potentially bring somebody in that, again, is like breadcrumbs, and maybe the 3 hitting coaches that they've brought in will fix those guys.
Marty said they need 2 starting pitchers, and then he yelled at us and said, 2! So,
Marty, keep your voice down.
Yeah, come on, Marty.
It's late at night. We're doing this live.
That's right. Hey, thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. Coming up, we're getting into what the bullpen shapes up now, what it looks like now, who they might go with, the 8 guys they might start the season with, and does this make the Jansen non-resigning any better? Let's look at how this team, the bullpen, came into 2025 versus what it might look like this year, and then what are they going to do about the closer? We got a ton of conversation left, and we'll be getting into all of that coming right up.
Football on Sundays moves really fast. There's always one big play, and then suddenly everything feels so different. That's why live betting with FanDuel is so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. And with FanDuel, you can place live bets as the action unfolds. For every drive, every momentum swing, and every highlight moment, live betting is best when the game starts to shift. Maybe a receiver gets hot or defense tightens up or the momentum flips after a turnover. FanDuel lets you jump in on every moment and keeps you locked in to every snap, drive, and every possibility. So if you want to stay right in the middle of all the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you.
This is the Locked On Podcast Network, the #1 sports podcast network out there, and it's thanks to everydayers like you. If you're ready to step up and join the Everydayer Club, you can do so. We just want to give you an opportunity to get more connected with the show. In fact, there's the Everydayer Club where you can have no interruptions while you're listening to Locked On Angels, a members-only Discord that's been really fun so far, and it's just $5 a month or $50 for the year. You can take it up a notch and go all access. You get one-on-one text access with me. I know Vince is in the chat right now, and we've been texting back and forth. He's an all-access member. All-access episodes, exclusive newsletters, and a 15% discount to the Locked On merch store. So go to lockedonangels.supercast.com or check the link in the show notes to learn more. Mike, I couldn't miss this show. I know I was gone on Monday. I felt under the weather. As a father, can you give me some fatherly advice? The colds you get from your kids, are they worse than the regular cold?
Feels like it, right?
Yeah.
It feels like it because you have to take care of the kid and try to get better.
Well, little man had the sniffles, and then I get headache and chest is, I can't breathe. And so I just, I had to confirm that with you. I'm not crazy.
You know why you're feeling better? Because Everydayer Nathan, and he's in the chat right now, he said, get well
soon. We want you to get well.
So got me good. All right, Johnny. So now that the Angels have signed Pomeranz and Romano, here's what the bullpen depth looks like right now. Robert Stephenson, Ben Joyce, who reportedly is not going to be ready for spring training, so that's still up in the air. Brock Burke, who is a lefty. Drew Pomeranz, now a lefty. Jordan Romano is a righty. Ryan Zephyr-John has 3 option years, so he can move up and down. Chase Silseth is out of options, which is so remarkable. It feels like he just started coming around, but that's not true. He's been around for a bit, and so he's going to have to be on the major league roster in the bullpen. I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, but we can talk about that.
I like him in the bullpen.
Yeah, we can talk about that in a minute. Now, Cody Laverson has 3 option years. Jose Fermin, 2 option years. Sam Bachman still has an option year. And then, of course, Alek Manoah, 2 option years. He's planned for the bullpen, according to Perry Minasian, as of right now, but he could slot in as the 5th starter. So that's 11 potential guys. Angels will carry 8 relievers. So a lot of questions about what the bullpen will look like at the start of the year.
Yeah.
Do you think that this is enough? You mentioned that in the first segment, like you're not as concerned about the bullpen. Do these moves solidify the bullpen, and can the Angels move on, or do they still need to make some moves there?
I agree with our friend Jared Timms over at Talkin' Halos. He tweeted recently, you can build a bullpen on the cheap. And that's what the Angels have done. They have good young guys in this bullpen. I think Zephyr-John had a bad year. There's definitely some changes that could be made there. I went back and reread that Fangraphs article, remember from the beginning of last season, that said like Zephyr-John's the best arm that you're not talking about or nobody's heard about. And man, the stuff he talks about in there, where he talks about his cutter being like the same shape as Emmanuel Classe's slider, Classe RIP. Actually, JK, he just can't play baseball anymore.
Right.
And then some of the other best relievers in their sliders, right? So it was like Zephyr John's cutter was like a weird shape, and he's just a guy that really can hone in on what he does well. He just has to locate better, and that's really what his issue was last year. I like Jose Fermin a lot, Mike, but if I'm going to decide what this team looks like, specifically the bullpen going into 2025, here's what I think it needs to be. Alek Manoah needs to be in that long relief role. He cannot be the fifth starter. As we said when he got signed, he cannot be the fifth starter. They have to find somebody to be the fifth starter. It cannot be Alek Manoah. Did I mention that it cannot be Alek Manoah as the fifth starter? That's just how I want this to. I want to hammer that home for everybody.
Yeah.
So let's start one. Manoah, long relief. Silseth, he's got to be on the team. So those are kind of your givens. Obviously, Robert Stephenson, if he doesn't have a hangnail and doesn't have to go on the IL. Brock Burke, the lefty. You want Pomeranz in there as your other lefty. Jordan Romano, obviously, he's going to be part of this. I think they're going to go Zephyr John because they really like him. I think the potential is there. I think that Mike Maddux, here we go. Mike Maddux will make Zephyr John better. That's what I would say.
Think so.
And that's,
sure.
And that's the thing is like, I don't want to say that about every bad reliever or bad pitcher and be like, well, Mike Maddux could fix them. I think that he'll take guys like Zephyr John and Fermin and maybe even Sam Bachman and Chase Silseth to the next level. I think he'll help them understand what they do well and understand how to execute that on the mound better. Mike, for the 8th spot, I think it's going to be a combination of Jose Fermin, Sam Bachman, and Cody Lowerson, because those guys can move up and down from the majors to the minors because of their options that are left. And you need to get fresh arms into the pen. If one guy throws, 2 innings, 60 pitches for some reason the night before, he's not coming out of the bullpen again. Yeah. So you can send one of those guys down and bring somebody else up. And I think that's what we're going to find between Fermin and Bachman and Lowerson. They're going to be up and down between the majors and the minors. And that was an issue the Angels had in the bullpen a few years ago between, Jaime Barria and Jose Suarez. They couldn't do anything with them.
Right.
Because they were stuck. They had no more options left. And the Angels are so afraid they were going to get claimed on waivers. Turns out they didn't get claimed on waivers, right? And because nobody wanted them.
Yeah.
But it paralyzed the Angels from getting fresh arms into the bullpen. So I kind of like the way this shapes up. Again, Manoah, Silseth, Stephenson, Burke, Pomeranz, Romano, Zephyr John, and some combination of Fermin, Bachman, and Lowerson. And then you get Ben Joyce back at some point once he's healthy again. How does that sound to you?
I really think that if you look at this on paper, you can go, okay, I'm pretty confident in that bullpen. However, there's just a lot of questions, right? There's a lot of question marks. Can these guys do what they're supposed to do? Chase Silseth is a question, right? He hasn't been able to be the guy that you want him to be in the bullpen, nor has he been the guy that you want him to be as a starter. I think he's better in the pen, but injuries have gotten in the way of this guy. And so if he stays healthy all year long, then I think he can actually be a solid bullpen guy. He reminds me a lot of the gritty, the gutty Scott Shields. And I think Chase Silseth has some of that in him. And if he can find it this year and be a guy who maybe has a 2.7 ERA and is striking out more guys than hits and walks, then I think he could be a consistent guy 5th, 6th, 7th inning, right? And same thing with a guy like Zephyr John. I think Zephyr John can be somebody that we can count on and perhaps be somebody that is at the back end of the bullpen. I agree with a couple of the everydayers that are commenting right now that said that Zephyr John was just overused. They used him a lot in a lot of different situations. And I think
that was Marty. He didn't yell this time.
Thank you, Marty. I think roles, Marty, you're smart. I think roles really matter in the bullpen. I think knowing what it is that you're going to be doing, even though I know that sometimes you can just use guys whenever, but I do think that you kind of want to put your guys in a mindset of here's when I want to bring you in and here's how I want to use you. And with Zephyr John, it was like across the board, they just kind of brought him in whenever they felt like it. And that was a Ron Washington kind of decision. And even as Ron went away and Ray Montgomery was here, they still kind of just threw him in right into the fire, right? Yeah. And I think with this bullpen, what I'm seeing from these guys is I don't think that any of these guys should go back-to-back innings. I think at this point, you want to have them have a clean inning, get out there. Obviously, it doesn't always happen. If you have to bring somebody in and the inning is not clean and they got to try to clean things up, I think Brock Burke has proven to be somebody that can come in and do those types of things. I think Fermin really struggles if he comes in an inning and it's not clean, and Sam Bachman does as well. So I think that's got to be the bigger question the Angels need to answer with this bullpen.
Well, and that's going to come down to how Kurt Suzuki manages this bullpen, right? And as a catcher, maybe he's got some sort of insight into that, right? And I think that's going to be significant. There was a comment I wanted to catch up on. From Gilbert, who said BTA. Beyond the Halo has shown how much money Perry has spent on relievers during his tenure, and it's $100 million, and all of them have been trash outside of Jansen. Well, he spent a lot of money on Bryce Iglesias. Obviously, they salary dumped him. Carlos
Estevez wasn't bad. Estevez was good. Yeah,
Estevez was a good closer. I think Aaron Loop, Ryan Tepera, those were bad deals, but again, they were really good the year before. And so it's what have you done for me lately? Remember Aaron.
And if we go back to the comments when they were signed and we look at what people said, people were stoked about that. They just fell apart. Right. And so that was a part of, I think, Perry's learning and why he might be going in this direction and getting some of these lesser or maybe cheaper guys, but could potentially be really good for us.
Again, it's a, what have you done for me lately? And I know, I'm sorry we had to bring up Aaron Loop on this one. But here's the thing is those guys were good the year before. And then when Aaron Loop left, he very much indicated that I couldn't do what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And it had a lot to do with what they wanted him to do on the mound versus what he was good at. And you saw it in the results.
Yeah.
You saw the kind of pitcher he was with the Mets the year before. Yeah. And then what he was doing with the Angels during his tenure, it looked nothing like that.
Yeah, John, Gilbert said that he's glad that we're hopeful on the blue pin. I like that, but he feels like it's going to be a hot mess. And if there's a one-run lead, I don't feel good about any of these guys coming in. I hear you, bro. I mean, that's really the reality of being an Angel fan. And when we look at these names, there's nothing that just exudes confidence. However, this is where I do think Mike Maddux will be helpful because the previous two pitching coaches, I think we're still trying to put puzzle pieces together. I think Mike Maddux comes in with a lot of veteran experience and can help these guys take the next step. Doesn't mean that it's going to be guaranteed on the field, but it does mean that he's going to give them a strategy. In fact, our buddy over at Locked On Rangers said that that's the best thing that Mike Maddux will bring to the starting rotation and to the bullpen is they're going to know what it is that's expected of them, and they're going to know how to prepare for the hitters. And so there is some confidence that I want to throw to Mike Maddux because he can use these guys. And a lot of these guys aren't just rookie guys that are trying to figure it out. They're guys that really want to prove themselves this year and some veteran guys. And so that's why we're a little bit more confident, but I'm with you. I'm still folding my arms. I'm still sitting back and going, all right, prove it. Show me. What are you going to do? Right.
All right, Mike. So a couple more questions before we wrap up this episode. Does this make up for not re-signing Kenley Jansen, who would have required $11 million and it sounds like an option after that? How do you feel about not bringing him back, even though we just talked about it on Monday? Yeah. Now this happens. Does this make it better? Does it make it worse? What do you say?
I still would lean in Kenley Jansen's direction simply because of what he did on the mound last year and because of what he was in this bullpen as far as an influence. I think that was a well-calculated risk to sign him again. I know that some of his underlining numbers didn't look great. I do think that if the Angels did sign Kenley Jansen, they would probably need one other guy to be able to offset. And if it was going to be like a Robert Stephenson, that would make sense. But I think that with Kenley Jansen on this team, you got to use Kenley in the moments where he's best, and that is in save situations and not in hold situations. So that I understand why he's not here. I just think if look at this bullpen and then I see a Kenley Jansen's name in this bullpen, I go, man, right. I'm a bit more confident with Kenley Jansen in this bullpen than him not being in this bullpen.
So with all the needs the Angels have to fill, like I mentioned earlier, starting pitching, third base, center field, probably second base, was this the right direction for the bullpen? Again, I contend that build it on the cheap. Like I said, I agree with Jared Timms, build it on the cheap. Because relievers are volatile. You can give Kenley Jansen $11 million and you might not know what you're going to get. And I am confident that he's going to have a great season. I'm not trying to pour any shade on Kenley Jansen, but that's the nature of bullpen arms. Unless you're elite, if you're somebody like Kenley Jansen, who's destined for the Hall of Fame, I think that's a guy that you pay for to come back because you can count on him. I mean, look at Matt Moore, right? He was great for us in 23, stunk in 24. And maybe that had to do with coaching. Maybe that had to do with how he was used, but he was just coming off a great season with us. So it was like, yeah, bring him back. And then was no good in 2024. So to me, I just think that with how much is left for the Angels to do, and like you said earlier, these moves look good if the rest of the moves are taken care of and all of the other necessity gets done, right?
Yeah, they need another starting pitcher, a good quality starting pitcher. They need a third baseman, and they need a center fielder and possibly a second baseman, right? And so that's the problem, is we just don't know what kind of money they're going to throw out there. And at this point, the narrative, the rhythm of Perry Minasian is they're not going to throw a lot of money out there. And so that's why we did the show on Monday, and we talked about the realistic signings, and even that might have been out of their range. When Ha-Seong Kim signs with the Braves for $20 million.
Oh, good grief.
That's where you go, I just don't know if the Angels are even going to be in competitive in that market, because they don't seem like they want to spend any kind of money outside of just throwing out maybe a couple $1 million to see if this guy will work out.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Maybe this will ease some worried minds out there. Can I remind you what the Angels came into 2025 with out of the bullpen? Obviously, Ben Joyce, Kenley Jansen, Ryan Zefferjon was there. We all know Reed Detmers was there. Brock Burke as well. But Mike, how could we forget? Ian Anderson was in this bullpen. Garrett McDaniels, Rule 5 pick of the Dodgers. We had to have him on the roster because he was a Rule 5 pick. Looked great in spring training. Then he went to the labs and came out looking like a different pitcher, and it wasn't great.
Yeah.
And finally, Ryan Johnson. Remember how Ryan Johnson started out of the bullpen and started the year out of the bullpen? Was great for that one inning in Chicago, and then Ron Washington ran him out for a second inning, and he fell apart. So again, Ben Joyce, Ian Anderson, Kenley Jansen, Ryan Johnson, Garrett McDaniels, Ryan Zefferjon, Reed Detmers, Brock Burke. I like our odds starting this year with the 2026 version of the bullpen as opposed to what we were coming in with last year. What about you?
Yeah, I like it. I also want to add that I will not be surprised if that fifth starter ends up being Ryan Johnson. And that's the guy that they put at in this rotation because he had a great year in single A. And so I can see the Angels going, well, he's got some experience and he's been in the majors before. And so let's give him a shot. So I could see him being somebody that might be competitive for that fifth spot. I think the Angels are really looking at their minor league guys, Caden Dana, Sam Aldeguerri, and Ryan Johnson and others as somebody who can fill those spots instead of going and throwing money at somebody. And so when we talk about like, hey, if they could sign this guy or get that guy or get this pitcher, there's a part of me that goes, I don't even know if they have their eyes outside of the organization right now.
All right, final thought. What's going on with the closing role? Because I don't know that any of these guys have the role nailed down. I mean, it could be Joyce, could be Stephenson, could be Romano, maybe Pomeranz, because he had to step up and do that when the Cubs bullpen was not getting the job done. Is it the hot hand, Mike? I know you said you like rolls. I like butter with my rolls, but you said you liked rolls. What about riding the hot hand? What if they do that?
I'm not opposed to that. However, I think Kurt Suzuki goes with Robert Stephenson to start. And if he's healthy, I think that's who you want to have close the game. And then if that doesn't work because Ben Joyce is still kind of iffy for spring training, then I think you go to a Jordan Romano and see what he can do, even though his numbers weren't great and he was injured at the end of the year. But I think that those are the two names that I would look at. And I would say, yeah, that's probably who I would say if I'm Kurt Suzuki, I would roll out there in the ninth inning. What about you?
At the end of the day, I like the hot hand. And I know that's not how it gets done. But look, when Jordan Romano stunk for the Phils, that's what they started doing until they got Johan Duran. So they were kind of going with like, all right, like Matt Strom, you want to get in here and finish this game and not give it to Romano? Because that's what we have to do at this point. So, yeah, I don't think that it's realistic to go with a hot hand, but I don't know, man. Sometimes the Angels work in mysterious ways, and we could certainly see more of that this season.
Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. Now's your opportunity to join the Everydayer Club and get Locked On Angels with no interruptions, members-only Discord access, and so much more just for $5 a month. Or you can go all access for $15 a month, one-on-one text access with my brother Jon, all access episodes, an exclusive newsletter, and a 15% discount at the Locked On merch store. You can go to lockedonangels.supercast.com, or you can check the link in the episode description.
Hey, be sure you give us a follow on Twitter at Locked On Angels, at Super Halo Bros on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. We're going to have this episode on the audio feed for you shortly after this. Of course, thank you for everybody who jumped in to the live to talk about this, and great discussion, great comments. Appreciate you guys being here. Let's keep it going. Get in that Everydayer Club and let's chat it up because it's been a lot of fun so far. Mike, when we come back on Friday, what do we have on deck?
Well, we're going to talk about Reed Detmers, and his best version was in the bullpen, but the question is, can he bring that guy to the starting rotation? We've got some stats, and we're going to show you what he should do, and we're going to talk about that on Friday.
All right, looking forward to that conversation, and we hope you'll come back and join us. Until then, my name is Jon, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother Jon.
All right, all you sickos who love this team and all the everydayers who love to watch and listen, we'll see you back here on Friday.
And if there's breaking news, we're going to be here, especially on Friday, to talk all about it, like maybe a Murakami signing. Huh? What about it?